It's Tuesday, June the 16th, the year of our Lord, 2026, and it's time for The Swamp, where I cover daily updates inside our federal machine. And if you enjoyed the video, please give a quick like and subscribe, leave a comment, and click the notification bell, and I'll keep you up to date on everything happening in The Swamp Monday through Friday. Every article in this video is linked below in the description, and the highlight segments from tonight's episode will begin dropping tomorrow morning around 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're kicking things off with Homeland Security. Quote, today, a federal indictment has been unsealed charging 15 defendants with conspiracy to impede or injure federal officers and other charges related to efforts of two Minneapolis-based Antifa groups that violently oppose the enforcement of federal law in our state. And that's a direct quote from Daniel Rosen with the Justice Department U.S. Attorney for the District of Minnesota. Let's give this a watch.
Today, a federal indictment was unsealed, charging 15 defendants with conspiracy to impede or injure federal officers and other charges related to efforts of two Minneapolis-based Antifa groups that violently opposed the enforcement of federal law in our state.
Violently opposed. And Antifa is finally starting to go down bit by bit, this time in Minnesota. It's been quite well, I wouldn't say it's exactly common, but Antifa is frequently mentioned with regard to Portland, Oregon. I haven't really heard a whole lot about Antifa in Minnesota, so this is certainly good news. Certainly not good news that there are people who are assaulting federal agents and people who are obstructing law enforcement, whether if it's Antifa or otherwise, but it's good news that they're finally being brought to justice. To those who chose to threaten or harm federal officers, we will hold you accountable, and we will defend federal officers. We will protect the public, and we will enforce the law. Another quote from Daniel Rosen.
Such stalking and other direct actions against law enforcement are criminal, they're un-American, and they'll be met with swift justice. That's why we're here today.
Throw the book.
To those who choose to threaten or harm federal officers, we will hold you accountable. We will defend federal officers. We will protect the public. We will enforce the law.
Well, damn right, I would certainly hope so. And do you think Antifa wouldn't be among those groups that would try to dox federal agents if they were forced to take off their masks while they are conducting raids and other law enforcement duties? You bet your ass they would. It would be a virtual guarantee, which is kind of ironic because Antifa, they wear masks on the regular, and they all dressed in black, trying not to identify themselves with their sunglasses and their little umbrellas that they twirl around. Anyway, Homeland Security, working closely with U.S. Attorney's Office, our investigation uncovered extensive planning, material support, and coordinated attacks against federal personnel and facilities. It is not optional. We will enforce the law. Any attempt to undermine it through violence or intimidation will be met with decisive action. And that's a quote from Michael McCarthy, HSIHQ Special Agent in Charge. That is Homeland Security Investigations.
Working closely with the U.S. Attorney's Office, our investigation uncovered extensive planning, material support, and coordinated attacks against federal personnel and facilities. Our teams have worked tirelessly, conducting surveillance, reviewing camera footage, and analyzing large volumes of information to identify those responsible. I want to thank all the agents and staff whose dedication and professionalism made these indictments possible. Our message is clear. You may not agree with the laws. You may protest the laws, but you must follow the laws or face the consequences. It is not optional. We will enforce the law. Any attempt to undermine it through violence or intimidation will be met with decisive action.
Decisive action, swift justice, time behind bars, potentially even years behind bars. Eric Doherty breaking the DOJ has just criminally charged 15 leftists tied to Antifa and left-wing groups in Minnesota for conspiring to attack and impede federal agents during the ICE raids. That includes Antifa Kyle, who recorded himself issuing threats. Fuck around and find out. Lock him up. And let's see, quotes, more quotes. I assume we're going to get all of this in the video. Look, this is 10 minutes long. Well, I'll at least start with a few minutes of it. We'll see where it goes. I don't intend on watching the entire thing, but just in case I don't, I will repost this. There is a direct link to my profile below in the description. It'll take you directly to this video. You don't have to get signed in or anything like that to use the X platform, at least not the last I checked. And we'll give this a go on 5ABC.
My name is Kyle. I'm Antifa, and there's so much rage in me that I've had to...
It was terrible quality.
Get the message out. They fucked up, okay? Go watch my other videos.
I remember this guy.
You're not caught up. You missed the fucking fight. But if you are, it's time to suit up. Boots on the ground.
This Temu body armor.
Fucking 26th, My house is 4 blocks away. Anywhere between Franklin and Nicollet and 26th and Nicollet. Show up, ready to go.
Show up.
Okay, not talking about peaceful protests anymore. We're not talking about having polite conversations anymore. I am talking specifically to my fucking followers. This is everything I have fucking talked about, and this is exactly what I said was gonna happen. This is exactly what I said was gonna fucking come when we didn't fucking go and march on fucking Whipple with guns.
And now he's been arrested.
But welcome to America 2026, where Second Amendment is the only thing that's going to keep you fucking protected from literal fucking Nazi gunmen that are killing innocent people in the street with impunity. This is not a fucking joke. There's nothing fun to chant about it. Get your fucking guns and stop these fucking people.
Yeah, that's not a threat against federal agents at all. I don't know why they didn't arrest him immediately after that.
Today, a federal indictment was unsealed, charging 15 defendants with conspiracy to impede or injure federal officers and other charges related to efforts of 2 Minneapolis-based Antifa groups that violently opposed the enforcement of federal law in our state. The defendants are members and associates of Direct Action Minnesota. They are charged with conspiracy to impede or injure a federal officer, solicitation to commit a crime of violence,
another big one,
interstate threats, interstate stalking, assault on a federal officer, and destruction of government property.
I mean, frankly, probably every single member in Antifa could be charged with all of those crimes, probably certainly multiple times, probably going all the way back to 2020, before 2020.
Earlier this morning, agents of Homeland Security Investigations conducted a coordinated law enforcement operation, culminating in the arrest of 12 of the 15 defendants. One defendant had already been in custody on other federal charges. 2 defendants remain fugitives at large.
Oh, they'll be found.
Today's charges and arrests reflect a broad federal effort to address organized, lawless behavior which seeks to disrupt the execution of federal law, endanger law enforcement, and importantly, endanger the very communities that these defendants falsely claim to be protecting. Be assured, the Department of Justice and my U.S. Attorney's Office has and will distinguish between lawful protest and criminal conduct. These defendants have been charged not for what they said, but for what they did.
What they did.
They all joined an agreement, a conspiracy, to interfere with lawful immigration enforcement operations. The conspiracy was not to interfere by their voice, but to do it by force. That's a crime, and it will not be tolerated in the United States.
What if they're getting paid by the SPLC too?
Direct Action Minnesota emphasizes their violent, militant approach to politics and are highly critical of nonviolent, peaceful protests. You see here a Facebook post from one of the defendants, Cameron Kennedy, writing, quote, "We need to become ungovernable."
Yeah, chaos, burn it all to the ground.
As
That's
the
what
name
they want.
suggests, Direct Action Minnesota is an organization dedicated to direct action against federal law and immigration enforcement. This action is not peaceful, it's obstructive, disruptive, and unlawful. The organization trains its members in the aggressive use of shields against law enforcement, surveillance, operational planning, and rapid mobilization against law enforcement actions.
Look, like, couldn't they arrest anybody who associates themselves with Antifa because now they're a designated terrorist organization? Or am I missing something? Maybe I'm just ignorant on the matter. But if they could prove, or if they can find any kind of posts or any kind of language that they put online associating themselves with Antifa, that would certainly be good enough to charge them with federal crimes, I would think. Terrorism.
Though investigations are ongoing, what we know now is that Direct Action Minnesota is comprised of members of subgroups. For example, the Black Hat Workers Collective. The Black Hat Workers Collective is a Minneapolis-based Antifa affinity group
Yeah,
which
commies.
advocates, promotes, and utilizes militant tactics and violence. Here you can see that their Facebook cover page shows as a banner the burning down of the Minneapolis Police Department's 3rd Precinct.
They're not going to show us these pictures, are they? Damn it.
One of the leaders of Direct Action Minnesota,
Of course.
Defendant Kyle Wagner,
Thank you.
identifies himself
For
as
God's
Antifa,
sakes.
and he doesn't shy away from it.
My name is Kyle. I'm Antifa, and there's so much rage in me that I've had to.
All right, so we did see all this.
Innocent.
We can at least
Created
skip
and
that.
exploited lawful protests to more efficiently carry out its unlawful direct actions, targeting operations involving ICE as well as other federal law enforcement, and as well as other state law enforcement.
A menace.
In order to achieve the ends of the conspiracy, Direct Action Minnesota was highly organized, holding meetings on a regular basis, and engaged in what they called operational security, or OPSEC.
Yeah, it's adorable.
The indictment unsealed today includes a focus on 2 days in which Direct Action Minnesota organized and participated in actions against federal and local law enforcement on January 23, 2026,
Okay.
and on March 1st, 2026.
I'm sure it goes back
On
a lot
those
before
days,
then.
Direct Action Minnesota members deployed what they called hard and soft blockades against federal law enforcement, as well as against Hennepin County Sheriff's deputies.
Which is absolutely retarded that federal agents don't just immediately arrest every single one of them for obstruction. And I've said it so many countless times at this point. If anybody is obstructing federal law enforcement, that carries up to an 8-year prison sentence for the first offense.
Direct Action Minnesota shut down operations at the federal Whipple building, a government building just north of the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport and the main hub for several federal agencies. Members of their hard blockade team used vehicles, RV trailers that they would overturn, check hedgehogs, and ice blocks that they would throw at law enforcement to obstruct roads used by law enforcement near the Whipple building in order to impede the movement of law enforcement.
Why just 15? There's hundreds of these people, right?
Members of their soft blockade team used homemade shields
It's just the start.
constructed
It's
from
the beginning.
plastic, wood, and metal to physically resist the efforts of law enforcement and to aggressively break through teams of officers on foot.
Looks like we're going to get through this after all.
Direct
Might as
Action
well.
Minnesota members also engaged in what they called commuting tactics, which included identifying, following, surveilling, harassing, and confronting law enforcement officers. Conspiracy members even followed law enforcement officers from locations like the Whipple building, to the officers' homes.
Yep.
For example, as alleged in the indictment on May 4, 2026, defendant Isaac Sant followed federal officers from the Whipple building all the way to Hudson, Wisconsin, where St. Croix County deputies stopped him. Such stalking and other direct actions against law enforcement are criminal, they're un-American, and they'll be met with swift justice.
Probably felonies.
That's why we're here today. To those who choose to threaten or harm federal officers, we will hold you accountable. We will defend federal officers. We will protect the public. We will enforce the law. I want to thank our partners at Homeland Security Investigations for their outstanding work on this case. And I now ask the Special Agent in charge of Homeland Security Investigations here in Minnesota, Michael McCarthy, to provide further illumination for us.
Okay, all right. Well, it looks like that's good enough. We could just end it there. And while we're still on the matter, let's have a look at this. What is Antifa's stated goal and what they want to ultimately accomplish? Like, what is the end result of what they want? Antifa's stated ultimate goal is to defeat fascism, of course. I think we all already know that, at least broadly defined to include far-right ideologies and racism, which is kind of ironic because they've been caught on camera countless times yelling racial slurs at other people, and often capitalism and state structures, and build a non-hierarchical, anti-oppressive society, typically anarchist, socialist, or communist in nature. As a decentralized, leaderless movement of anti-fascists, they lack one unified manifesto, but core self-described aims include no platforming and confronting fascists, neo-Nazis, white supremacists by any means necessary, including direct action. So if they had absolute unlimited power, they would essentially just kill anybody that they just determined to be any of those things. Opposing broader oppressive systems like capitalism, policing, and the states, which they see as enabling fascism. Again, if they were to get ultimate power, I would assume that they would do a whole lot of policing, I would imagine. Achieving revolutionary change toward anti-authoritarian, egalitarian alternatives, anarchism, and communism. In short, smash fascism and the systems they view as fascist, enabling to create a stateless, classless society. Tactics range from protest to violence, but the end game is systemic overthrow, not reform. So I guess just burn the whole system down, and then what? The end? I guess that they all just go on their happy, merry little way. I don't know if I would really call that an end-game situation or their final goal, but in a nutshell, at least according to Grok, that's the plans of Antifa, the now terrorist organization in the United States and other countries too. From Homeland Security, we will not tolerate violent rioters attacking our law enforcement. If you assault our law enforcement officers, you will face the full weight of justice. Thank you to the FBI and the Justice Department for standing with our ICE law enforcement.
Since June, nearly 24 people have been arrested on charges connected to ICE protests in Southwest Portland. The latest, 24-year-old Jacob Hoops, a Reed College graduate. FBI investigators say Hoops threw a rock and hit an ICE officer in the head, then later used a stop sign to damage the ICE building.
Again, this is in Oregon. This isn't even in Minnesota. This is a completely unrelated, but still in the same, sphere of the topic. 24 have been arrested. 12 hours ago, case update from FBI Portland. A Portland man was sentenced to federal prison after striking an officer in the head with a large rock at the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office in South Portland. Robert Jacob Hoops was sentenced to 30 months in federal prison and 3 years of supervised release. He was also ordered to pay over $8,000 in restitution. And you can learn more about the investigation. I'll have that linked below. The FBI will not stand idly by and allow federal officers to be assaulted by rioters. We will investigate any perpetrator using violence to express their views and hold them accountable. From Matthew Torres, FBI Portland acting special agent in charge. And news release, Portland man sentenced to federal prison for aggravated assault. And of course, he's going to be a registered felon, won't ever be able to possess firearms. I believe they don't have the right to vote after they get out. I don't know how they do things in Portland, but isn't like the majority of the voting system, isn't it, determined by the states? I believe it is. So not sure how that works in Portland. Federal elections might be a different thing, but I honestly don't know. And moving on to Secretary Brooke Rollins, Tuesday takedown, steal from SNAP and get busted. These 8 fraudsters thought they could steal food assistance money and get away with it from just over $1,000 all the way up to more than $1.1 million. The USDA FNA is coming for everyone attempting to defraud the American taxpayer. Report fraud here. And of course, I'll link that too, just in case you know somebody who's committing any kind of fraud in the SNAP benefits program. Tuesday takedown, steal, SNAP, get busted. And those are the perpetrators that are being accused. Don't believe that they've been convicted just yet. So, of course, they're presumed innocent until proven guilty. So, Abdid Wahid Mohammed, he's the $1.1 million guy. Of course, in Minneapolis, because why wouldn't he be? And let's go ahead and move to the next. What else do we have from FBI Director Kash Patel? Oh yeah, this happened over the last weekend. On June 10th, the FBI and our law enforcement partners became aware of a potential threat to the UFC America 250 event in Washington, D.C., involving individuals outside of the National Capital Region. And thanks to the rapid action of this FBI, our partners, and the Department of Justice in a multi-state operation, multiple individuals are now in custody, and allegedly planned attacks were stopped cold. While the result represented the best of investigative work, it was also nothing out of the ordinary for this law enforcement team. We are built to detect, respond to, and bring to justice those who threaten the lives of American citizens, particularly during large gatherings like this historic UFC 250 fight. That's exactly what we did here. I want to thank our great agents and partners. The work remains ongoing, and we will continue to update the public as permitted. We continue to encourage any American to report anything suspicious. 1-800-CALL-FBI or tips.fbi.gov. And this is going to be on Fox News, I think. Yep, it's going to be on Fox News. Because of course it is. FBI disrupts alleged explosive drone plot targeting the White House UFC event, officials say. Signaled chats allegedly revealed 23 people discussing pre-operational activity. And the FBI and its law enforcement partners disrupted an alleged plot targeting this weekend's UFC Freedom 250 fight in Washington, D.C. 5 people were in custody as of Monday, and investigators identified 23 people as part of a potential network of plotters. The alleged plan involved using explosive-laden drones to hit buildings near the event and force a mass evacuation and steer crowds toward a pre-staged sniper team. Holy shit. A second wave was then allegedly planned to storm the White House gate, according to officials. These people are fucking nuts. The FBI first learned of the threat on June 10th and worked with partners to secure probable cause for an arrest in Cincinnati, where one suspect was taken into custody. Court documents identified the suspect as 19-year-old Tyson Proper. And let's see what else we got. It's a real insurrection. It's a real one this time. According to a criminal complaint, Proper allegedly spent $3,000 of his graduation money to purchase lots of ammunition, guns, extra magazines, and other items for the alleged attack. Must have been very cheap guns and ammunition. That's all he spent it on. Authorities estimated that several boxes of ammunition that Proper had allegedly acquired contained thousands of rounds. Yeah, probably Russian steel casings. It is also alleged that Proper acquired an AR-style rifle, a bullpup rifle painted with the American flag, and 2 plate carriers with AR-style magazines, probably, I don't know, High Point maybe. His family voluntarily turned over the equipment to law enforcement. So there you go. That is the AR-style. That's what they're calling AR-style rifle. And let's see. His father told officers that Proper had quit his job to meet up with people he had met online to conduct missions and recons, according to the complaint. It said that Proper's mother had first alerted authorities over concerns about his recent alleged firearm purchases and communications with individuals online. See, that was kind of what I was wondering. Did the feds catch on to them while they were communicating online, or was it another one of these concerned parents or anonymous tips or some call into the authorities, and that's what alerted them? Because it seems like the authorities, they like to take all the credit without, digging into the real tip-off that led them into the investigation. So I don't know if that was the catalyst that got them to bust this whole organization or not. 2 others identified as Brian Omar Roa and Michael Allen Thomas were arrested in California for alleged involvement in the plot. Both men were charged with conspiracy to commit murder. They appeared in court on Monday in Riverside, California. So there's both of them. Idiot number 1 and psychopath number 2. Daniel K. Eskridge of Kansas City, Missouri, and Abraham Hermosillo Alvarez of Omaha, Nebraska were also arrested. Court documents say Eskridge's wife told investigators he described himself as a recruiter for the group and had amassed tactical gear, including a rifle, ammunition, other equipment, in recent months. So they've been planning this for months. She also said he built a firearms range on his property about 3 weeks before his arrest, and that she was aware of his signal communications through messages that appeared on a shared tablet. Well, if she didn't, I'm assuming if she didn't alert the authorities prior, maybe she might be charged with accessory, maybe. Alvarez allegedly operated under the online moniker Shepherd and served as a key organizer of the plot, using a signal chat to direct staging locations, sniper and drone positions, escape routes, and communications protocols, according to court documents. Prosecutors say he also discussed coordinating with other groups and urged participants to obtain additional explosive-capable drones, writing as many and as deadly as we can get. Which is actually quite alarming. As I mentioned the other day, what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, especially with Ukraine, they're purchasing cheap drones off the internet, probably Amazon, maybe not literally Amazon, but cheap drones that you can find on Amazon for like $100, $200, and they strap explosives to them and they kamikaze them into the enemy. So I don't think it's all that extremely complicated to build something like that these days, and that's what's so frightening about it. Multiple sources told Fox that those in custody are American citizens and a foreign nexus was not involved. The U.S. Secret Service said it worked closely with the FBI during the investigation. And anyway, so I'll just stop there. There's plenty more to get through in this article, but of course I'll link it below. I kind of fell just a little bit behind after playing all of that 10-minute video, but it's no big deal. We got a lot to get through. Rapid response 47 from the VP. I've got several videos. The vice president was busy on the media all day today also, just like he was yesterday, I believe. This is very, very dark stuff. This is what happens when people turn the rhetoric up so loud that disagreeing with somebody is a cause for violence.
But this is very scary. We learned about this, about 30 minutes ago, an hour ago in the middle of our show.
Sure.
Why do you think they're telling us this? Because I know there's a lot going on behind the scenes with the FBI.
Sure.
We don't always find out. Why do you think they're telling us this now, and what's your reaction?
Well, I think they're telling us because the scale of the planned attack is so significant, and I think it's important for us to be as transparent as we can be about these ongoing investigations. We want to tell the American people what's going on, of course, but I actually just heard about it this morning myself, and so this is a very, very dark stuff. And unfortunately, we're talking about this a little bit off camera, but
just
this is what
JD Vance's
happens
beard
when
getting
people
awfully white.
turn the rhetoric up so loud that disagreeing with somebody is a cause for violence. That's the place that we've come to, unfortunately, with too much of our political rhetoric. We got to tell everybody to tone it down. And I hate to say this, but it's true.
Yeah, but the left ain't going to.
You see more political violence and violent rhetoric coming from the left than the right these days.
Oh, far
Everybody has a role to cut this stuff out. But I think a lot of my Democratic colleagues in Washington have got to look themselves in the mirror and say, why is so much of this political violence coming from our side of the spectrum? Maybe they can do something different.
Well, yeah. I mean, of course they're not going to. They're just going to keep doubling down on their violent rhetoric. They just constantly do that, just over and over again. Like Hakeem Jeffries, like the leader for the Democrats in the House. Every other word is a violent word, it seems, that he's spewing out on a daily basis. Every time he gets in front of a camera, it's just constant violent rhetoric. It's just nonstop. And it's not just him, it's all of them. It's virtually all of them, except maybe John Fetterman. All right, FBI director, I believe. Okay, so we already did that one. So this was just in response to the post from FBI Director Kash Patel, which I already went over. Moving on to another one from the Vice President. You see the propagandists who are saying, here are all the things Iran gets. Moving on to Iran at this point. The big print in the actual agreement is they don't get any of that stuff unless they totally transform themselves as a country. And if they do, that's a huge win for everybody.
The Iranians have just had their conventional military destroyed. Their country has totally changed. They have a totally different leadership than they had even 3 months ago. And so what is happening is that some elements in their society are trying to sell this deal as positively as possible to their domestic audience. Now, that's expected. It's frustrating to me, but that's expected. What is a little unexpected and more frustrating to me is that you see certain people in the American media literally recirculating hardliner talking points from the IRGC instead of telling the truth about what's going on. So first of all, not a single cent of American money goes to Iran. Not $300 billion, not $24 billion, not any of the money, the dollar figures that I've seen floating around. Number two, this is a firm commitment backed up by verifiable action to never develop or buy a nuclear weapon by the Iranians, which, remember, that was the whole point of this entire operation, is to ensure not just that Iran wouldn't have a nuclear weapon for the next couple of years, but that they would make that long-term commitment. Now, here's the important part, though, is there are benefits to Iran if they perform their end of the obligation. Not money from the United States, but maybe Qatar or the UAE or Saudi Arabia.
Or maybe unfreezing of some of their assets, maybe.
The United States, our approach to that is going to be,
lifting of sanctions.
Do that so long as the Iranians are behaving properly. But if they don't behave properly, they don't get any of the benefits of this bargain. And so you see the propagandists who are saying, here are all the things Iran gets. And the fine print, which actually the big print in the actual agreement is, they don't get any of that stuff unless they totally transform themselves as a country. And if they do, that's a huge win for everybody, for the region. If they don't, no skin off our back.
I mean, like, I'm not crazy about the U.S. federal government telling other countries that you better be on your best behavior or else we're going to bring down the hammer upon you again. Yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that for now. From the VP, the United States wins either way. What the president is trying to do is actually extend the hand of peace and say if the Iranian people want greater prosperity, then their leadership has to step up and change their behavior. If they do, great. If they don't, the United States has already gotten a lot of what we need.
And Iran has shown they never wanted to do that. They cheat, they steal, they lie, and do what they want to do. What gives you reason to believe it's different this time?
Well, what gives me reason to believe is that I never believe and I never trust anybody's words. I trust people's actions. And what this deal, what the president's peace plan fundamentally does is it creates a two-pathway option for the United States of America. No matter what happens, Iran's nuclear program has been destroyed. They have no enrichment capacity. We destroyed it over the last year and a half. No matter what happens, their economy is in dire straits. The blockade and a number of the actions we've taken ensures that. No matter what happens, their conventional military has been destroyed, and they don't have the resources to rebuild it. But here's the option for Iran. If you learn the right lessons from this, and if you change the way that you react and respond to the United States, option one is we're going to change the way that we respond to you. We're going to have a better relationship. But if they choose option two, which is we're going to continue to try to pursue a nuclear weapon, then nothing that we don't commit to doing anything as part of this deal. So the United States wins either way. What the president is trying to do is actually extend the hand of peace and say, if the Iranian people want greater prosperity, then their leadership has to step up and change their behavior. If they do, great. If they don't, the United States has already gotten a lot from what we need.
Well, and plus, Russia has already bogged down in a war, so they're probably not going to offer a whole lot, like behind the scenes, behind closed doors, in secret or whatever, secret convoys of goods and materials and things like that. Same with China. China's probably not going to provide a whole lot, although they might provide some here and there, some assistance to Iran that we may not be crazy to hear. Although, China, they've got their own issues going on. I know their economy's always been pretty volatile, especially recently. But Iran really shot themselves in the foot by attacking 14 other countries the day that Operation Epic Fury kicked off. So I don't think any of those 14 countries are really going to, accept any reaching out on behalf or by Iran with regard to any kind of assistance or any of the like. So yeah, I mean, maybe they might just end up isolated, like North Korea style, for all we know. Let's see, what those Gulf Arab countries thought about the JCPOA. They hated it because they thought it empowered Iran to be a bad actor. You know what they think about the president's peace plan? They love it because they think it's turning over a leaf to a new Middle East.
What's interesting is there's been a lot of chatter, of course, about this peace deal with Iran. And one of the questions I'm most often asked is, well, how is this different from the Obama JCPOA? And there are all of these answers I could give. Number one, we're not giving them a red cent of American money. Obama gave them over $1 billion in a pallet of cash. There are all these substantive differences. I actually think the most important difference is, what those Gulf Arab countries thought about the JCPOA? They hated it because they thought it empowered Iran to be a bad actor. You know what they think about the President Trump peace plan? They love it, because they think that it's turning over a new leaf to a new Middle East. So there are so many big differences between, of course, our policy and the previous administrations. But what we've done here is actually unite the Gulf together. That could have transformative impacts, not for the next couple of years, but the next couple of generations.
Well, I think Iran did a great job of that on their own. Again, attacking 14 countries, all of those Gulf countries, all in a single day. I think Iran did plenty of that on their own as well. You see the United States working with our Gulf Arab partners in a way you've never seen before in the history of this country, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've gotten to the point where we have a very good peace deal that's on the table.
What is most interesting about the last year and a half, the underreported part of the Trump administration's policy in the Middle East, is that all of these Gulf Arab coalition partners are coming together with the United States. Israel is obviously very involved, and they're actually pushing back together. You see the United States working with our Gulf Arab partners in a way you've never seen before in the history of this country. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've gotten to the point where we have a very good peace deal that's on the table that we're ready to sign, is because you see for the first time the Gulf Coast countries pushing back against Iran, uniting under the president's leadership, and actually doing something different for a change.
Last I heard that they're supposed to be doing the signing as early as Friday, so I'm definitely going to be looking out for that. And Vice President Vance on the Iran deal. And you know what? I'll just go straight to the video and I'll read that quote too.
The agreement's actually very simple. It says, 1, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. 2, the Straits of Hormuz are open. And number 3, there are all of these benefits contemplated that the Iranians can get if they behave. If they stop developing terrorism, if they stop funding terrorism, if they stop supporting the rebuilding of the nuclear arms program, they actually can get some real benefits. If they don't do any of that stuff, they don't get anything. And I think that's where a lot of the misunderstandings come from, is you've got Iranian propagandists out there saying, well, we get all these things. And they leave out the fact that they only get those things if they fundamentally transform themselves as a country. So the United States wins either way. As the president said, either they get nothing, we destroyed their nuclear program and the Straits of Hormuz are open, or they fundamentally transform themselves. And that's a big win too. It's really up to them.
Okay. All right, that might be the last, or nope, no, it's not. I got another one. It's the exact opposite of Obama's disastrous Iran deal, says Jesse Waters on the regarding the President Trump's negotiated agreement. Difference between Obama deal is that they cannot build a nuclear weapon, they can't enrich it all, and they can't stockpile.
From what I understand of the deal, it's the exact opposite of the Iran deal, where proxies and missiles are covered, because if they fund the proxies, then they don't get the economic benefits, and the missiles are covered because 85% of them have been destroyed, and 90% of the industrial base has been destroyed, so they've been disarmed. They can't rearm because they can't manufacture more weapons. And now they can't really project power outside of their borders because they have no Air Force and they have no Navy, and they don't pose an imminent threat to the United States anymore, and they have no air defense, so we have full air superiority. Also, the difference between the Obama deal is they cannot build a nuclear weapon. They can't enrich at all, and they can't stockpile because they can't access the uranium. The dust is so deep down there, the only people that can get it is us. And if we even just let it sit there in a uranium grave for eternity, it's already destroyed their nuclear program.
Is that the only place in the country where they could get it, uranium, though?
Dead. So if we do nothing, it's already accomplished the president's main objective, which is prevent them from ever getting a nuclear weapon. Everything he laid out the day after the bombing started has been achieved. This does what the Obama deal doesn't do. And if they screw around and make mischief again, we could still reinstitute the blockade. We could still hit them again, so that's fine. And you've already seen oil go down into the 70s. Gas prices are, what, a couple
dropped to
cents
the
away
70s.
from the $3 range. Stock market at all-time high. And inflation should taper off as the Strait opens throughout the summer.
All right. It was in the $80 a barrel range yesterday, so it's dropping even more. Senator James Lankford, Iran isn't stronger. Its inflation is roughly 70%. Its GDP per capita is on par with Haiti. Its economy is collapsing all around it, and its military is decimated. That's not a stronger nation. President Trump made America safer by making Iran weaker.
I was on this past Sunday morning with Hakeem Jeffries, and he kept talking about how much stronger Iran is now. That this
hilarious,
battle has
retarded.
made Iran even stronger. They've been even stronger. He kept coming back and saying it over again. It just made me laugh, and it's like an alternate
low IQ
universe,
propagandist
of concepts here. Iran's inflation right now, we're talking about 4% inflation in America. It is 70% inflation. Their GDP per capita right now is the same as Haiti. So their economy is literally collapsing all around them. Their military is decimated. Their Navy is decimated. We dropped a huge bomb right onto their nuclear facilities to be able to set them way back on it. Democrats keep coming up and saying, well, they can just reconstitute in weeks and days. We haven't really set them back. That is not true. Their economy is way back. Their military is way back. Their nuclear program is way back.
They've been getting sanctioned for, decades now?
Can they continue to fight? Sure they can. But they can't win, and they know that. And so the focus now is how do you make sure that we apply enough economic pressure on them, which is what the president's doing right now, shutting their economy down, so they will finally come to the table and to be able to make the agreements that should have been made decades ago.
Or maybe it's time for the people to stage that revolution and take their country back and try to get Iran back to the way it used to be. Senate Republicans, if Senator Murphy, here, let me do this one first. So from Chris Murphy, Democrat, the terms of the supposed agreement with Iran are humiliating, but that humiliation is worth it if the war ends and we prevent Trump from digging this hole deeper.
Are you on board
from
with
CNN.
This as where it stands right now?
Yeah, I believe both of those things are true, that this is a surrender to Iran, and that it's good that
oh my God, these people are retarded.
Because every single day that this
so
war
retarded.
went on, it was getting worse and
We're
worse
surrendering.
for the United States. And we just don't have serious people
to a country with no more
security
effective
right
military.
I give a ton of credit to our generals and our soldiers, but they were led into a war that they could not win. And so, yes, we need to
but we ended
stop this war right now unilaterally.
We're signing the peace deal.
Americans can't bear the prices. Iran is getting stronger every single day. The military mission was impossible. There was no way for airstrikes to eliminate Iran's nuclear program, their drone program, or their missile program.
Yeah, except
so
they did.
The terms are humiliating, but just keeping a war that wasn't working going for another month, another several months, that would have been worse than the humiliation of this apparent temporary agreement.
Well, in case you wondered why the everyday Democrat voter is completely low IQ, completely just absolutely ignorant as to what's going on in the world around them, just locked into this leftist matrix, look no further than CNN. That's exactly where they're getting this information from. Ass backwards and full on we Todd Ed. From Senate Republicans, if Senator Murphy calls decimating Iran's military and nuclear program a surrender, what word would he use to describe Obama's JCPOA, which he enthusiastically supported? Senator Murphy knows President Trump has already done more to stop Iran than President Obama's deal could ever have hoped to accomplish. No enrichment for the first time in 20 years, no functioning nuclear facilities, a generation of military leadership eliminated, 85% of missiles, drones, naval defense industrial base has been destroyed, and also 161 naval vessels have been sunk. Plus, not to include God knows how many aircraft that we've taken out along the way, although they did mention the drones. So anyway, that was the response from the Republicans, the Senate Republicans. Just absolute brain deadery, man. Rapid Response 47, you think that our immigration policies are inhumane based on the reporting of one person with a political bias. What I'm telling you is that it's inhumane to allow cartels to sex traffic people across our border. JD Vance even went on The View.
You talk about the
Crazy.
children. Here's what I'd say. Do we know that during the last administration, we had tens of thousands of children who were sex trafficked by the cartels, who were brought into our country in profoundly dangerous
Hundreds
and
of
predatory
thousands.
conditions?
Let's talk about this administration.
But here's
Let's
the
change the
point.
subject.
Unless you enforce the border, you invite that kind of conduct. You think that
you
our
do.
immigration policies are inhumane based on the reporting of one person with a political bias. What I'm telling you is that it's inhumane
Not one
to allow
person.
cartels to sex traffic people across our
And you
border.
guys have done
And by the way,
please
Comes the rabble.
I appreciate that.
Hold
We're gonna
on.
get you back, Anna.
We're coming back.
Dude, oh man, he's got guts, man. I mean, I'm not saying that like, you know, you got to have like balls of steel to go on this show. I would just say, just for your own personal sanity, a 6-on-1 argument would be very annoying, for lack of a better word. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the border czar, Tom Homan, not working with ICE means endangering law enforcement, communities, and criminal illegal aliens themselves. So let's hear the short clip from Tom Homan.
With New York, I know you said you were going to surge
Oh, y'all
ICE
crank it up.
agents there. Can you tell us when we can expect that to happen?
No,
What can we expect to happen?
you can expect more ICE agents go to New York because Governor Hochel signed legislation that ended our 287G agreements, where one agent can arrest one bad guy turned over by a jail. Now we got to send a whole team to look for that guy. So she took the efficiencies of the jails away in the 287G agreement. So it's math. One agent can arrest one bad guy in the safety and security of the jail, which is safer for the alien, safer for the agent, and safer for the community. But she decided to kill all that. So now we got to send more agents to do the job that would have took one person.
Yeah,
Duh. For you, are you confident that Congress is going to pass that immigration funding this week?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, he threw in that yes at the very end. So yeah, he's right. It's simple math. I mean, if they can't send one agent to pick up one person who's under arrest in a jail, then just like what happened in all the other blue states where ICE has been going in, they have to go and send a whole team out into the public where just the public is now under threat from not only just the process of the apprehension, but the illegal immigrant himself who just got out of jail. So he's, I mean, obviously, look, like, I get like innocent until proven guilty and all that. I get all that. However, they just got out of jail, so it's kind of hard to tell what they're really capable of once they get out there. Homeland Security reminder: ICE has nothing to do with this woman's death. Okay, so hold on, let me go back and let's do this one first. Let's see. All right, it's NBC News. I'll just read the post and maybe I'll get into like the first paragraph or so because Homeland Security, they already said that this article is completely just untrue, probably in every sense of the word. But anyway, it says a medical examiner has ruled the death of a Haitian asylum seeker a homicide after she contracted hypothermia following her release from federal custody. Well, she was released 3 days before her death from federal custody. And of course, Homeland Security, they say that they left her at a bus stop where there was public transportation. I think they even gave her like a voucher or money or something like that so she can move on about her way. They gave her, plenty of resources for her to just make her way back to wherever it was that she was going to end up going. And a few days later, she unfortunately succumbed to, I believe, the elements a few days later. And of course, NBC News, they're blaming ICE directly or Homeland Security. And anyway, so let's just check out a bit of this. Medical examiner ruled the death of a Haitian asylum seeker after being released from federal custody a homicide. Again, released 3 days or 3 days before her death from federal custody. Of course, I don't think they're going to mention that. An attorney representing her family said that he expects her relatives to sue Immigration and Customs Enforcement in connection with her death. I would say good luck with that. Daphne Mitchell, 31, died March 2nd. She was found at a bus shelter in Pittsburgh. The Allegheny County Medical Examiner's Office found her cause of death to be hypothermia and ruled the manner a homicide, and indicating that death was caused by the actions of another individual. I mean, I don't really know how. I mean, dude, she's an adult. she's an adult, for crying out loud. Like, if she's incapable of taking care of herself, I'm pretty sure that there are systems in place for her to receive assistance. I know in the state of Florida, we call it the Baker Act, where if you're not mentally fit to take care of yourself, at least for a minimum of 72 hours, the state essentially takes custody of you while you get evaluated by doctors, indicating that death was caused by the actions of another individual and should not be interpreted as a declaration of criminal guilt, the office said in a statement. The office released its findings on Friday. Mitchell was a native of Haiti who was seeking asylum in the U.S. after arriving at the southern border in 2022, said Joseph Patrick Murphy, her family's attorney. Well, wait, she didn't have a home? Was she literally homeless? Because you could rule the death a homicide and charge the state of Pennsylvania, or wherever this happened. It was Pennsylvania, right? Well, regardless, you could charge the state, you could charge the local government, you could charge whoever who should have been offering her those resources. I mean, after all, I imagine it was probably a sanctuary state. So anyway, she was granted humanitarian parole based on urgent humanitarian need, but she did not live to see a hearing scheduled for 2 weeks after she died. So she was released on parole based on urgent humanitarian needs. So again, I say, where were the resources? Where was she living? You know, the places who were supposed to be providing her assistance, how come they're not being charged with any crimes? The medical examiner's office said Mitchell was a vulnerable adult suffering from untreated severe mental health issues and a significant language barrier at the time for her release on February 27th. Okay, well, whoever it was that released her, how come they don't get charged with murder? They're the ones that released her. She was arrested last summer for yelling at imaginary people due to her psychiatric challenges, Murphy said. She spent 6 months in Washington County Jail where she underwent multiple psychiatric examinations as she waited her first hearing. A magistrate said he could not hold her for trial for threatening imaginary people. Okay, well, I suppose that makes sense. Afterward, ICE arrested her in her cell, put an ankle monitor on her, and took her 25 miles away to Pittsburgh, where she sat at a bus shelter for days in winter. She was in September clothes, and it was February. The weather overwhelmed her, and she went into hypothermia. Medical examiner's finding of homicide is different from criminal charge, meaning somebody did or failed to do something that brought about her demise. Murphy said he said he expects Mitchell's family to file a lawsuit against ICE. I mean, dude, it's the medical examiner. I don't know why he's even making that comment. That's ridiculous. In an email, Department of Homeland Security spokesperson said ICE had nothing to do with this. Okay, so that's a perfect time to switch back to the post from Homeland Security, and we'll have a look at this. ICE had nothing to do with this woman's death. She passed away 3 days after ICE encountered her. Following her arrest by local authorities, the terroristic threats and harassment, Daphne Mitchell, a illegal alien from Haiti, was encountered by ICE and placed in removal proceedings. ICE issued her an ICE ankle monitor, and she was released from ICE custody on February 27th. She was released with all of her belongings, including a fully charged phone, in sunny weather in the middle of Pittsburgh, where public transport is readily available. On March 3rd, ICE received a notification that her ankle monitor had been tampered with. ICE officers traveled to her last known location on the GPS system. Not the last location where they dropped her off, the last location where her GPS pinged. Now, if she literally sat on that bus stop for 3 solid days, then obviously that's where that would have taken him. But it was tampered with, so I don't know. County medical office. All right. Upon arrival, local staff refused to cooperate or even talk with ICE federal law enforcement. Oh, okay. So actually, I accidentally brushed right past that. So they traveled to her last known location on the GPS system, which was the county medical office. So if what they're saying is true, then NBC News is full of shit. She didn't just sit there at the bus stop for 3 days and literally froze to death. She left the bus stop and went elsewhere, including the county medical office. Upon her arrival, local staff refused to cooperate or even talk with ICE federal law enforcement. Our officers instead had to call the U.S. Marshal Service, who were let into the building and were given the severed ankle monitor. However, staff refused to even tell the U.S. Marshals about the individual's condition. So again, you could charge them with homicide too. Apparently, ICE was never given official notification of her passing and found out about her death via the media, thanks to the local county's refusal to even have a conversation with federal law enforcement. It's just more BS, more low IQ propaganda as usual, just trying to demonize our federal law enforcement. You know, what else is new? They're just trying to make mountains and mountains out of molehills. It's very unfortunate that she passed away, and it's definitely not federal law enforcement's fault that she died. It would be absolutely the state who was supposed to be providing her services, and they failed to do so. Anyway, from Secretary Sean Duffy, let's move on. Whoa, Ohio just pulled 1,200 foreign truckers from the road. They couldn't follow our rules and prove they were here legally, so Ohio took action. Get ready, more crackdowns to come, and I will have that linked to Cincinnati.com. News story. We'll check out this video. Okay. Democrats, that's so racist. How dare they do that? They can't do that. All right, so where was that? Here we go. Ohio strips CDLs for 1,200 foreign truck drivers. I assumed that video was going to be related to the story. It really wasn't. It was just a waste of 30 seconds, if you ask me. So nearly 9,000 truck schools face closure in the U.S. I don't think that's directly related, but it's only a minute, so we'll have a listen to this.
Or 44% of truck driving schools here in the United States may be forced to close. And
that is crazy. I didn't read that anywhere.
In the coming months, nearly 44% of America's truck driving schools could be forced to close after review from the Transportation Department. And what the Trump administration is finding is they say that some of these trucking schools are not complying with government requirements.
Of course not.
They found that the Trump administration has been prioritizing highway safety since an illegal immigrant with a trucking license caused a crash in Florida and killed 3 people. So this crackdown is intensifying. The Transportation Department plans to revoke the certification of almost 3,000 truck driving schools, with another 4,000 also in danger. The feds say those schools aren't complying with training requirements, and that's making our roads less safe. But these decertifications mean almost 44% of America's truck driving schools would effectively be out of business. Homeland Security has started auditing trucking firms in California owned by immigrants looking for unauthorized use or illegal drivers. And one of the things that people are looking at in this industry is whether or not this could make the truck driver shortage worse. The Transportation Department says the schools have 30 days to meet these federal requirements, or
there you go. Get your shit together.
So certainly a story that's pretty big. We'll keep you updated on as it affects our infrastructure and movement of goods and services.
Well, I'd be curious to know how many of these truck driving schools had sprung up over the last 5 years. Was it just a few hundred, or is it measured in the thousands? Because perhaps a lot of these truck driving schools are probably offering their services to illegals exclusively, maybe. Look, I didn't read that anywhere. It's just my own opinion. So anyway, Ohio is revoking some commercial driver's licenses for foreign truckers after a federal audit found certain licenses no longer meet updated requirements. The state said 1,200 drivers have already received downgrade notices because their documentation no longer meets updated federal eligibility requirements, according to Transport Topics, an outlet covering trucking and freight transportation. The changes follow a nationwide halt and new federal rules for non-domiciled CDLs, USA Today reports. Ohio defines a non-domiciled CDL as a U.S. commercial driver's license issued to someone who is legally in the U.S. and authorized to work, but who is not a permanent resident. The Department of Transportation is also urging states to more strictly enforce English language proficiency requirements for commercial drivers. Yeah, that's how you keep the roads safe, so they could read the signs and speak to authorities when needed. Ohio's Bureau of Motor Vehicles is reviewing about 5,000 non-domiciled CDL holders. The Columbus Dispatch reports some can keep their licenses until they expire, while others face revocation. Here's what to know. Ohio revokes 1,200 CDLs for foreign drivers. Ohio is the latest state to stop issuing non-domiciled CDLs, joining several other states that have ended similar programs. For example, Oregon revoked about 900 licenses and ended its program to avoid losing federal funding. Wow, Oregon actually played ball. Ohio state officials say the review is ongoing. At this time, BMV has not finalized its full downgrade list. Ohio BMV spokesman Brett Crow told Transport Topics approximately 1,200 individuals were sent notice of downgrade letters as part of the initial review batch. According to Transport Topics, the federal rule summaries, the licenses were revoked because the documents drivers originally submitted no longer met federal motor carrier safety administration requirements, which now limit eligibility largely to certain visa types such as H-2A, H-2B, and E-2. All right, and that's happening. And let's see what else is happening. CBP-AMO. Watch. P3 leads high-speed pursuit. Marijuana seized. Ecuadorian smugglers arrested. A Jacksonville P3 on routine patrol in the Caribbean Sea's source and transit zone detected a fast-moving vessel on June 11th. The crew visually identified a 3-engine Ecuadorian-style go-fast boat loaded with fuel barrels and large packages. The position and details were quickly relayed to Joint Interagency Task Force South and the U.S. Coast Guard. U.S. Coast Guard assets, including a helicopter and over-the-horizon vessels, responded rapidly. After an overflight, the suspect vessels stopped, allowing U.S. Coast Guard teams to gain positive control. The result was 3,960 pounds of marijuana seized and 2 Ecuadorian suspects detained. Outstanding teamwork and coordination between NASOC JAX and JIATFS and the U.S. Coast Guard. I cannot imagine that all this weed has got to be all that high quality. It's probably just like this brick-packed crap that used to go around like decades ago. I'm surprised that they're even, just trying to smuggle all that stuff in these days with so many states that have already legalized it or have it for medical use. In many cases, it's extremely easy to get it through medical use and whatever. It because I'm probably going to get hit with the copyright anyway, so doesn't look like we're going to get any narration or anything of the sort. I'll turn to the background music though. That's why it's there. Probably doesn't match up too well to the situation. It's a lot of weed. It doesn't look like 4,000 pounds though. Probably some below deck. Okay. And rock and roll to the next one. Chairwoman Lisa McClain. You have to see this to believe it. Oh yeah, I forgot about this one. So the week on the Severn River near Annapolis, a man was knocked overboard and his boat took off with the engine still running, racing and circling with no one at the controls. It was just a rogue speedboat. Maybe not a speedboat specifically, but it was a boat that was traveling at high speed. And his son sped through the water to pull him to safety. A Coast Guard crew chased down the runaway vessel, pinned it during a turn, and one brave officer leapt aboard the speeding boat to shut it down. Ordinary Americans and the heroes who protected them, rising to the moment together. This is who we are. Share it. Let's check this out. A rogue boat. Yeah, not a speedboat, but that's fast though. That's crazy, man. It's going in circles. Oh, yeah, I saw him. He jumped on. That is wild, man. And there you go. They got it under control. Damn, the Coast Guard's badass, man. You don't see a whole lot of news with the Coast Guard, but I try to share them as often as I can, especially if something like that happens. That was too wild to pass up. From the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Navy update, U.S. Second Fleet and international partners commence Fleet Exercise 250. Norfolk, Virginia, ships from 17 allied and partner nations arrive to Naval Station Norfolk in preparation for Fleet Exercise, or Fleet X 250, June 14th through the 15th. Beginning on June 16th, the multinational maritime exercise will commence for the first time in Hampton Roads and in the Atlantic Ocean. A special reception aboard Wasp-class amphibious assault ship USS Iwo Jima LHD-7 will serve as a welcome event for Fleet X 250. The large-scale exercise is designed to enhance interoperability and test the integrated forces in a dynamic multi-domain training environment. Fleet X-250 will bring together 31 warships, multinational aircraft, and their crews to conduct a series of structured training events at sea. The exercise will focus on a full spectrum of naval warfare, including anti-air AAW, anti-submarine ASW, and amphibious operations, culminating in a scenario-driven free play event against a dynamic adversary. The primary goal is to build cohesiveness, validate tactical procedures, and strengthen the collective capabilities of the participating forces in a simulated combat environment. Fleet exercise is a tremendous opportunity to bring together a powerful multinational force, said Vice Admiral Doug Perry, Commander, U.S. 2nd Fleet. Training and operating as an integrated team sharpens our competitive edge and demonstrates our shared commitment to maritime security and stability in the Atlantic. That sounds awesome, man. And here's the full story, which I will have linked below in the description. And we're going to rock on to the next one. From Eric Doherty, just in, Senate Leader John Thune tells President Trump no, they won't attach the Save America Act to the FISA bill as Trump requested because it's unrealistic. At every possible opportunity, the Save America Act gets stalled and blocked. It got 50 votes on the floor. Nuke the filibuster so JD Vance can swoop in and break the tie. Listen to Trump equals a win. It is a simple equation, Thune. So President Trump says a few Democrats are against FISA with or without Bill Pulte going to DNI as acting. What kind of a deal is that? Besides, I'm against FISA if it doesn't come with the Save America Act, the full version, firmly attached to it. Make America great again. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. And here's John Thune.
Sometimes perhaps not fully grasp around the country, but anybody who follows this process closely knows that we don't have the votes. And the only way that you could figure out a way to get the votes, and even in that case, the Save America Act didn't even get 50 votes last week on the floor of the Senate. But even if you confine it to, it's a
well, they do the talking filibuster, standing filibuster, whatever it is, like the one that you need at least 50 votes to do, and they get everybody on the record. I mean, it'd be a long, drawn-out process. It could take days, maybe it could even take weeks for that whole process to see its way through. But it's better than doing nothing. It would certainly be a start. Or, of course, they could, nuke the filibuster. They could certainly do that also, because Democrats are just going to do it sooner or later anyway. Later, John Thune. So before I give this a play, 704 likes and 7,700 comments. Absolutely obliterated by a ratio 10-1. We need to get the FISA Section 702 program reauthorized quickly so that the intelligence community has the tools they need to keep Americans safe during a summer of high-profile celebrations.
Jay Clayton is an eminently qualified individual to become the new director of national intelligence. And so we are looking forward to processing him this week. Chairman Cotton, they will be marking that up or having his confirmation hearing tomorrow, I should say, and hopefully reporting him out later in the week. It would take cooperation among the Democrats in order to get him confirmed this week. But in my view, at least, he has all the qualifications that are necessary. He has the vision, the experience, the judgment, the competence, all the things that you want in that position. And so I'm hopeful the Democrats will cooperate and enable us to get him into this position and get him confirmed there quickly. And
I wouldn't hold your
that,
breath.
Of course, has not been a given. You look at the fact that this president, President Trump, is the first president in history not to have a civilian nominee confirmed either by voice vote or unanimous consent. That is truly, truly unprecedented. But that's been the Democrat
obstructionists these
practice
days.
and pattern through this in this current administration. But I hope that they will waive that for this and allow us to get this done, because I think that also unlocks the 702 process. And as most of you know, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act 702 program is the most successful tool when it comes to keeping people and this country safe. And we are currently lapsed, and that also is unprecedented. And we are lapsed because the Democrats block voted against a bipartisan deal.
Yeah, but didn't we exist as a country for well over 200 years before that even came into effect, though?
Democrats and Republicans.
Like, aren't there any other tools that we could use?
It is now currently not an authorized program. That needs to be changed. It needs to be fixed quickly, and I hope that the Democrats will work with us in order to make that happen. That's going to be certainly something that's front and center for the balance of this week.
Yeah. All right, so let's just have a quick look at a few of these comments. This was from 6 hours ago as of this recording, by the way. David Coyote, the most hated Republican next to Mike Pence. Congratulations, POS. And John Thune's stepbrother is Mitch McConnell. Yeah, there you go. John Thune, the rhino. The treacherous Thune tramples on the will of the people and wants to continue allowing FISA to violate our Fourth Amendment rights, all in the name of your safety. How about F off Thune and Save America Act? America English, do you speak it? Then you know what I'm saying. Say it again. Of course, that was from Pulp Fiction. We need the Save America Act just as much, if not more. Safety for freedom, quite the trade-off. I believe the forefathers warned us about this. And yeah, so people are just pissed off because, look, Save Act, the Save Act, Save America Act, and it just goes on and on. That's what the people want, dude. The people want the Save America Act to be passed. At least throw every tool that you could possibly throw at it. You know, any resource that you possibly have, including, you know, the standing filibuster or what have you, that they absolutely could do. I just don't think that he wants to, because I would assume in his opinion, well, that's not going to get it done anyway. So, you know, why waste the time? All right. Because that's what the people want. All right, Tim Burchett, it's never a good time to violate the Constitution. Hashtag
We
FISA.
got a whole bunch of foreigners in this country for the World Cup. So is this a bad time to lose that tool? Should we do something in the short term? Or does it just not matter? And if that's the case, then why the heck do we have it in the first place?
It's never a good time to violate the Constitution. We take an oath to uphold the Constitution. The Fourth Amendment is very clear, and it expresses that they have to get a warrant if they're gonna spy on you. All they do is they find out you've got an illegal working on your roof, and they want to get to you, and they know you're on his cell phone. They go after his cell phone, and oh, guess what? Your line's on there, so they can go after you now. That's exactly what happened. I don't know why everybody's not talking about the hundreds of thousands of violations of FISA in the last 4 years under Joe Biden. President Trump's correct. Wow. If they want to pass something, if they want to do something for our great country, put the Save America Act on. And let's take our elections back before these elections are stolen from us.
Well, also it's the FISA courts who issue those warrants, I believe, right? The behind closed doors, those secret courts that they talk about. I believe those are called the FISA courts. And from what we've heard in the past, that it doesn't matter, essentially what it doesn't matter that comes across their bench or what have you. They just rubber stamp everything that comes across. At least so I've heard.
Yeah,
I read that somewhere.
It was you and all the Republicans. It was you and 18 Republicans who voted against it, and it expired.
Yes, ma'am. You said I joined the Democrats, and you said I joined the Democrats, ma'am, and that was inaccurate completely. And I wish they quit trying to do this. Look, again, Joe Biden used it. His administration used it to spy on Donald Trump, to spy on Americans. And now all of a sudden we're in charge.
Well, he's probably got a point.
Fix it. That makes us complacent and compliant in illegal activity, and we need to fix it. That's all we need to do. Get a search warrant. What's wrong with that?
We can debate.
I mean, yeah, he does kind of bring up a valid point, though. You could still get a warrant from a traditional judge. You don't have to go into some secret courtroom and get a warrant through there, because I would assume that they're going into that secret room because it's a lot easier and more convenient to do so, instead of just going to I don't know if I'd go as far as to say a real judge, but you could go to the traditional court process, which I'm sure is what they were doing prior to 2008. I mean, we had terrorism in this country before 2008, or nefarious actors that were here.
We can debate how the authorizations and the FISA court and how you get authorizations for these searches now. But we don't have time. You're welcome to come back, Congressman, but I want to ask you.
I would love to come back, ma'am, because
I want to ask you.
I took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and that's what I intended.
All right. Well, and I'm sure there's plenty of valid arguments on both sides. Probably more valid arguments against the FISA Act than for it. From the White House, President Donald J. Trump stands alongside the world leaders for the G7 family photo. And there it is from above. There's the G7 leaders, even though there's a lot more than 7 there standing there. But all right. But I get it. The G7 leaders are there in the photo with President Trump and the others. From Republicans, Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, and D.C., it is time to vote. Probably too late by the time you listen or watch this. Find your voting location at Swamp the Vote USA. I'll have it linked, even though it's probably not really going to matter. But maybe in the future, you know, like during the primaries, or even during the actual election on, I think it's November 3rd this year. Get out and vote. And the polls close at 7 p.m. Interestingly, in D.C., the polls don't close till 8 p.m. And from the White House, President Trump participates in a bilateral meeting with the president of the United Arab Emirates, which we saw a little bit. We didn't hear any of it from President Trump, but it was earlier at the beginning of this episode that we saw Trump speaking with, I believe he was the leader of the UAE. So we're not going to watch all of it. Of course, it's like 39 minutes, but I will see if we can get at least a little bit of it.
He does what has to be done, and he's known for it. He's a courageous man. He's got a great country. It's a fantastic country, and they've been with the United States for a long time. But I would say much more so since I came on board, I will say. They've invested trillions of dollars in the United States. And,
yeah, man. UAE, they love building.
Before another meeting,
Trump loves building.
That we have over $19 trillion being invested in the United States, which is a record.
That's crazy.
And it's building factories, car plants, everything. We're doing things that have never.
Look, if that's actually true, which I have any reason to believe that it's not true, with that being the case, with all these factories being built and the prospect of all these manufacturing jobs coming online, it would probably be within the next, 2 years, 3 years, maybe 4 years or so. There's some pharmaceutical companies that are building manufacturing facilities here that they have announced over the last several months. So it sounds like there's going to be quite the boom in the blue collar in the manufacturing industry over the next couple of years.
The record was $3 billion many years ago with a different country. Then we're going to be over 19. I think we'll head to $19.3 trillion.
I think he actually made a mistake. He said 3 billion. That's what I heard. Maybe he meant to say 3 trillion. But if he indeed meant to say 3 billion and now we're talking 16 trillion, that's a hell of a record break.
Not going to be anything. Maybe we'll do better next year. I don't know if it can. I don't know if you can do better. But I just want to say that the relationship has been outstanding. He's a man of great respect. Everybody respects him, and they respect your country. And it's an honor to be with you. And we just signed a deal with Iran, and this country was very, very.
Oh, wait.
Very powerful ally.
They already signed the deal? Hold on.
And it's an honor to be with you. Man of great respect. Everybody respects him, and they respect your country. And it's an honor to be with you. And we just signed a deal with Iran, and.
Okay, well, they already signed it then.
This country was
it's already been signed.
Very,
last I heard, it was going to happen on Friday.
Very powerful ally, and good things are happening. The ships are starting to move now. We're going to have it fully open by Friday. The ships are starting to move nicely. Oil is starting to go, and the prices are coming down rapidly.
Okay.
Stock market is going up rapidly. A lot of good things are happening, and most importantly, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. That was how I got involved in this.
Okay, well, I'll just cut it there, and I'll repost this. Again, direct link to my profile below in the description, or you can go to @WhiteHouse and check it out there. I work all day long. I got a full-time job. This is just a hobby that I do in the evenings, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. But so, definitely signed a deal with Iran, and that's already a done deal, so that's certainly good news for sure. And a quick comment on the whole stock market exploding. I keep reading and hearing and watching content revolving around AI, the AI bubble, and how the AI bubble is expected or potentially expected to pop at some point later this year. And supposedly people's 401ks are much more heavily leveraged into AI through big tech companies than people realize. According to some sources that I've read, Google namely, and some other areas, that a lot of 401ks, like belonging to millions of people, they could see a substantial percentage of their 401ks just vanish if this AI bubble bursts. And it sounds like it's going to, because these tech companies, they've poured hundreds of billions of dollars into AI development, AI infrastructure, and they're not getting the profits. Like they're getting like 10 billion, 8 billion, 15 billion, but they're putting hundreds of billions of dollars into it. So unless they get some insane return on their investment in a short amount of time, the chickens are going to come home to roost, and these companies may be reevaluated substantially lower than they already are. So I don't know. I'm not giving out any financial advice or anything like that. I'm just voicing what I've observed. And when he mentioned the stock market is exploding and everything's great, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's going to continue being that way for a whole lot longer, because there's a lot of leverage into AI right now with these tech companies, and it's gobbled up quite a share of the stock market and people's 401ks, and a lot of people don't even realize it. They don't have any idea how much their 401ks are actually invested into these tech companies. All right, so from the Trump war room, 11 years ago, Donald Trump has descended the golden escalator and changed American politics forever. You remember when this happened? On this day.
Ladies and gentlemen,
oh, wait.
I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again. I will be the greatest jobs president that God ever created. I tell you that. I'm using my own money. I'm not using the lobbyists. I'm not using donors. I don't care. I'm really rich. I'll show you that in a second. And by the way, I'm not even saying that in a bragging. That's the kind of mindset, that's the kind of thinking you need for this country. So, because we got to make the country rich, it sounds crass. Somebody said, oh, that's crass. It's not crass. This is going to be an election that's based on competence. Because people are tired of these nice people, and they're tired of being ripped off by everybody in the world. I would build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me.
The big,
and
beautiful wall. Just got 10 feet
very
taller.
inexpensively. I will build a great, great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall.
Yeah,
Mark
that's right.
my words. Nobody would be tougher on ISIS than Donald Trump. Nobody.
We kind of held that into the bargain.
Sadly, the American dream is dead. But if I get elected president, I will bring it back bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and we will make America great again. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, well, I think we all remembered back then in 2016, throughout 2016, that was a wild year. All kinds of crazy stuff happened in 2016. Like just not only Trump winning the presidency, the Cubs winning the World Series in the first time in forever, like was it 108 years or something? Fidel Castro died that year. There was a bunch of stuff that happened in 2016. It was a crazy year. So anyway, let's just move on again on this day. Hey, Jesus, right? Jesus Oseti says a sitting federal judge improperly attended Fani Willis's election night party, and she was sanctioned. When this came to light, she didn't voluntarily recuse from our high-profile election integrity case. Of course she didn't. Instead, we had to move for her recusal and sought expedited consideration. 2 weeks later, and less than a day after threatening a writ of mandamus, the judge recused. Great team effort led by Assistant AG Harmeet Dillon. And let's see what this says. Willis's past efforts have become heavily polarized. Thus, the court cannot discount the potential that the undersigned's attendance at an event sponsored by Willis's campaign, even if that attendance was only for the purpose of reuniting with former colleagues. Judicial Council Report 17 would lead an objective observer to perceive that the undersigned supports Willis's position, and perceived support of Willis's position on election integrity could cause an objective observer to significantly doubt the undersigned's impartiality in this case. Therefore, out of an abundance of caution for the potential perception of bias, the undersigned will disqualify herself from future proceedings in this case. What matters is not the reality of bias or prejudice in this appearance. So, yeah, anyway, recusing herself, and definitely the right move. And we've got this from Assistant AG Harmeet Dillon herself. Judge Ross has granted our motion to recuse in the Georgia voter rolls litigation. And just a brief summary on the matter, according to Grok. DOJ Civil Rights Division sued Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, seeking Georgia's full unredacted voter rolls to enforce federal election integrity laws. U.S. District Judge Eleanor L. Ross granted the DOJ's motion to recuse the June 15 order. She attended a 2024 partisan campaign event for Fulton District Attorney Fani Willis, who prosecuted Trump. A Judicial Council report noted it risked eroding confidence in judicial impartiality. Ross cited the case's polarized context around election issues and recused under 28 U.S.C. Section 455 out of caution for any appearance of bias. Case will be randomly reassigned. At least, well, I guess we can only hope that it will be randomly reassigned, but I guess we'll just have to see. And anyway, getting to the 5-page order, I'm not going to read the entire thing. Maybe I'll just read a little bit of it. Presently before the court is the United States motion to disqualify. The United States requests that the underside recuse herself from this case under 28 U.S.C. Section 455 based on a finding in a report from the Judicial Council of the 11th Circuit that an unnamed judge, since identified as the undersigned, attended a partisan political event hosted by a district attorney's campaign, Fannie Willis, of course. The report concluded that the undersigned attended the event, a private mixer that was part of a larger function that was undoubtedly partisan political in nature. Judicial Council report at 12. Okay, so then I read that on the last post, so I'll just leave it there, but I'll repost this also if you want to read all of those. And Harmy Dillon also says, in the final, glad to see that our specific legal arguments and common sense prevailed in this motion. So anyway, the judge has been recused, and they're going to get a new judge in this matter, so we can hopefully get the voter rolls in the state of Georgia, as we hopefully will in all states, although I highly doubt it, but it would certainly be nice just to make sure that our voter rolls across the country are on the up and up. And from the DOJ Civil Division, the Department of Justice files a suit to stop ongoing Medicaid fraud related to New York's $10 billion home care program. The Justice Department is acting to ensure that federal laws regarding truthful statements and fair dealing in federal health care programs are upheld and to prevent additional harm from being exacted against the public by Public Partnerships, LLC, and New York. And this will be on justice.gov, of course. Department of Justice files suit to stop ongoing Medicaid fraud related to New York's $10 billion home care program. The Justice Department filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of New York against the State of New York Department of Health, New York State Medicaid Director Amir Basiri, and Public Partnerships, LLC, an Alpharetta, Georgia-based company that has managed New York's Consumer-Directed Personal Assistance Program, or CDPAP, since 2025. New York's backroom deal with PPL has cost taxpayers millions of dollars and cast countless Medicaid patients to the curb, said Assistant Attorney General Colin M. McDonald for the Justice Department's National Fraud Enforcement Division. Today's action is the latest reminder that the Justice Department is mobilizing every available tool to protect taxpayer-funded programs from fraud and corruption. One of the Justice Department's key priorities is protecting the public fisc and delivering savings to American taxpayers, said Assistant Attorney General Brett A. Schumett of the Justice Department Civil Division. New York's failure to police a favored vendor that unlawfully siphoned millions of dollars of Medicaid funding is egregious and betrays the public trust. The Justice Department is acting to ensure that federal laws regarding truthful statements and fair dealing in federal health care programs are upheld and to prevent additional harm from being exacted against the public by Public Partnerships, LLC, and New York. The lawsuit aims to stop an alleged fraud scheme by which PPL has generated millions of dollars in unauthorized profits funded by federal taxpayers in connection with its takeover of New York's $10 billion CDPAP program. The lawsuit alleges that the New York Department of Health awarded PPL the lucrative CDPAP contract after conducting a sham bid process, and then, despite learning of PPL's intent to deviate from the representations made in its bid and violate the federal terms, or financial terms of the contract, failed to take action to hold PPL accountable and to protect public funds from misuse, resulting in a fraud scheme that remained unchecked to this day. The lawsuit seeks to enjoin all defendants from making further misrepresentations about the CDPAP program and from charging American taxpayers millions of dollars unauthorized by the contract. And let's see, CDPAP is a Medicaid program that provides home health care through lay caregivers to Medicaid patients with disabilities or significant medical needs. Spring 2024, the New York legislature passed a statute that consolidated the management of CDPAP from hundreds of pre-existing fiscal intermediaries to a single fiscal intermediary, setting up one of the most lucrative contracts for administrating a Medicaid program in the nation. The lawsuit further alleges that PPL in New York repeatedly made knowing misrepresentations to the public concerning the date by which PPL's transition could be completed, intentionally concealing that since the contract's inception, both PPL and New York were aware that the transition would likely not be complete by April 1st of 2025, the contractually designated transition date, and would result in severe disruptions to patient care and harm to patients across the state. And even worse, PPL in New York, without explanation, have disregarded key limits the contract imposed on the revenues and profits PPL was entitled to receive under the contract, limits that were central to the goal of saving hundreds of millions of dollars through the CDPAP transition. So it only goes on just for a little bit, but I think we got the gist of it. And let's see what else we got. Maybe I got something else on. Nope. We're just going to move on to Lee Zeldin. I thought I had one more DOJ thing going on, but no. That's all I got for today. From Lee Zeldin, one of my first acts as EPA administrator was instituting and enforcing a zero-tolerance policy toward any waste and abuse. In 2025, the Trump EPA saved $30 billion at an agency with an annual operating budget of $10 billion. I explained how that was possible during remarks last week at the National Association of Home Builders Conference in D.C. And here it
came
is.
Into an agency that has an annual operating budget of about $10 billion a year. In 2024, they obligated and spent over $60 billion. It was more money than the agency knew how to spend. There was a video that came out right after the election where an employee of the EPA was talking about how they were getting billions of dollars out the door. They were tossing gold bars off the Titanic. Their words, not mine. Rushing to get the billions of dollars out the door before President Trump is sworn into office because they were concerned that when President Trump
I remember hearing about that.
He was going to stop
reading about
doing
it.
that. Well, that's accurate.
Trying to spend as much as they could before Trump
They said
got
that it
into
would
office.
be kind of cool to get themselves jobs at the recipient NGOs of the money.
Oh,
We instituted a zero tolerance policy for
That is
any
so
waste
dirty,
and abuse. Last year, we saved an agency that has a $10 billion operating budget. We saved $30 billion. Well, how is that possible? $10 billion, how do you save 30? Well, because they weren't able to get the money out the door fast enough.
They clawed it back.
And through canceled grants, canceled media subscriptions, real estate consolidation, staff efficiencies. We closed a EPA museum that probably no one in here knew even existed or ever visited. So
I think that was in D.C.
I'm probably not disappointing you to let you know that that is no longer available for.
Yeah, it was like 20 million or 30 million with an M.
But I tell you, if someone comes to me with an idea of how to save $100, how to save $1,000, I'm listening. I want to institute that efficiency. Too often in this town, millions, billions, trillions, it's all like one thing. It doesn't matter. I have an idea of how you could save $1 billion. Well, $1 billion is only 0.003% of, they'll always come up with what that is a part of, a fraction of the larger budget. Well, for me, every single dollar matters.
Dude, that's so crazy. If I heard him right, that the EPA was dumping tons of money into NGOs and nonprofits with the expectation that people in the EPA were going to lose their jobs and they could just jump ship from there over to that NGO because we handed them a bunch of money. So they've got plenty of money to employ us, even though I'm sure they're not going to need as many of those people on staff. Not that most of these NGOs probably really need to function in any capacity at all. All right. Next on the list, Dr. Oz, one man, $58 million in false claims targeting Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurers. This is who the White House Fraud Task Force is going after, and we're only getting started. Alexandra's fraudulent luxury lifestyle won't follow him to prison. And we've got another one on Fox News. I'm assuming he's got a link below here. If not, then I'll find it. Okay, yeah, here it is. Apparently he bought a Bentley. Probably bought more than one Bentley. Haitian fraudsters' eye-popping taxpayer-backed drug scam puts Congress on the hunt. Oh yeah, see, look at that. Like, JD Vance has been so busy this week in the media. He's even going on Gutfeld tonight. All right, Jean Jethro Alexandra bought a $2.5 million mansion, also a Bentley and a Mercedes fleet. He bought a whole fucking fleet before being ordered to pay $14.3 million in restitution. I'm assuming he's going to prison too. Members of Congress are calling for increased oversight and reform after a Haitian national in Florida was convicted in a healthcare fraud conspiracy that prosecutors said involved more than $58 million in false claims targeting Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurers used in a federal drug discount program. Prosecutors accused Jean Jethro Alexandra and his co-conspirators in 2025 of recruiting fake patients and offering them financial kickbacks if they accepted fraudulent prescriptions, primarily for HIV and AIDS medication. Written by nurse practitioners involved in the operation. According to court documents reviewed by Fox, Alexandra would then cash in on the scheme using insurance reimbursements for filling the fake prescriptions. He used the proceeds from his scheme to bankroll a life of luxury, including a fleet of top-end cars, a mansion near Miami, and a slate of investment properties. The case has drawn renewed scrutiny to the 340B drug pricing program, a decades-old federal initiative designed to help safety net providers serve low-income patients that is increasingly being criticized by lawmakers and industry groups who say weak oversight has allowed bad actors to exploit the system. Advocates for reform may point to Alexandra's case as evidence that the program is in need of tweaks to reduce the risk of fraud. And is that his house, I'm assuming? Alexandra's South Florida mansion. I mean, yeah, it looks about mansion-sized, I suppose. I mean, it's sitting right on the water, even though that's doesn't look saltwater in nature. It's just, probably like a retention pond or a lake. The 340B program was created with good intentions to help vulnerable and underserved patients access care, but unfortunately it has evolved into a massive, poorly supervised program with weak transparency and accountability safeguards. Rep. Diana Harshbarger, herself a pharmacist, told Fox, cases like this demonstrate how the current structure can create opportunities for bad actors to exploit deeply discounted drugs, questionable contract pharmacy arrangements, and opaque reimbursement practices for personal profit. Let's see. When there is limited federal oversight, little transparency into how 340B revenues are used, and enormous financial spreads between discounted acquisition costs and insurer reimbursements, it should not surprise anyone that fraudsters see the program as a target. Alexandra used a nonprofit health clinic that he secretly co-owned to purchase drugs at a discounted price or discounted rate. The federal 340B drug pricing program had the prescriptions filled by pharmacies who provided Alexandra's clinic with reimbursements paid by the insurers, including Medicare and Medicaid. All right, I'm skipping down to the nitty-gritty. Prosecutors said Alexandra used proceeds from the healthcare fraud conspiracy for personal benefit and traced assets from this scheme to buy a luxury car collection that included a 2024 Mercedes-Benz S-Class, a 2023 Bentley Flying Spur, a Mercedes-Benz G-Class AMG, and a 6-passenger golf cart-style vehicle. Additionally, he purchased a $2.5 million, 4,452 square foot mansion on the southern coast of Florida, equipped with a custom pool and spa. I don't know if I'd call that a mansion, but it's definitely a big house. The Trump administration mounted a series of fraud investigations across federal programs, including Medicare and Medicaid, framing them as part of a broader push to root out waste, abuse, and improper payments. Of course, we know all that. Let's see. Oh, it says he faces, he's from Haiti, and he is to be handed over to ICE and processed for removal after serving a sentence of just under 10 years in prison. And he's going to be barred from re-entering the United States without explicit written permission. In addition to prison time, he's on the hook of paying roughly $14.3 million in restitution as part of the term of his plea agreement, which he's never going to pay that back. I mean, come on. But still, I mean, at least put him on the hook for it. Alexandra's lawyer did not respond to a request for comment. Naturally, they're not going to. And what else do we have by way of fraud? AAG Harmy Dillon, looking forward to doing our part. The Associated Press. The Trump administration is moving moving the Education Department oversight of special education and civil rights to other agencies. And Assistant Attorney General Harmy Dillon, who is she heads up the Civil Rights Division for the DOJ. She's happy to hear about this. Trump ramps up Education Department's dismantling with changes on special education and civil rights. Again, this is going to be on apnews.com. President Trump's administration on Tuesday accelerated its dismantling of the Education Department, delegating much of its work to protect the nation's at-risk students. The Department of Justice will take on enforcement of civil rights in education, while the Department of Health and Human Services will oversee special education, administration officials announced. With those moves, the Education Department has now carved away the vast majority of its functions for other agencies to handle. I mean, wouldn't that be nice if they just finally got rid of this just wretched department once and for all? The two Education Department offices involved, the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services and the Office for Civil Rights, defend the rights of children with disabilities and those who experience discrimination based on race, sex, or religion. Advocates worry the change would mean lapses in communication for families and school officials who need help. Trump, a Republican, okay, blah, blah, blah. Let's see what else we got. McMahon, who is the Secretary of Education, said the arrangements align federal responsibilities with the agency's best position to support them. The Trump administration has been clear. As we scale back federal micromanagement when it hinders success, we are equally committed to bolstering the efficacy of federal oversight where it is essential. Advocates said the changes would create uncertainty around services relied upon by millions of students and families. As often the case, traditionally underserved students, including students with disabilities, and Black and Latino students, multilingual learners, and students from low-income backgrounds, and students in rural communities will bear the greatest burden created by this reckless decision, to which the disability and civil rights communities have already been vehemently opposed, said a written statement from EdTrust, a Washington, D.C.-based think tank. Of course, it's a think tank. It's a propagandist, low IQ, just... I don't know, based on the leftist ideology, I would imagine, and everything else that comes with it that advocates for educational equity. So there you go. It's all about the equity, the diversity, the inclusion. The Education Department already has offloaded some of its programs through 10 earlier internal agreements, but the offices affected by Tuesday's announcement were among the most closely watched. All right, so the Office of Special Ed and Rehabilitative Services manages billions of dollars in grants and oversees state compliance with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. The Office for Civil Rights, which has been thinned by mass layoffs, investigates complaints of discrimination at the nation's schools and universities. The Department of Justice will take over work protecting student privacy and will provide some training and advisory help to schools. While Justice and Health Human Services will handle most day-to-day duties of the assigned offices, the Education Department will continue to perform some tasks, such as responding to audits and issuing final determinations in civil rights cases, which is explicitly required to do so by law. And all right, so I think I might have got it there. Let's see what. All right, yeah. So I'm going over an hour and a half on my time, but anyway, the whole thing's going to be linked below in the description. So I usually don't have time to read the entirety of the articles. You know, I never intend to read like every single word of every single article. But I do intend to have this link below if you want to have a look at it. You can read all of the rest of it for yourself. And of course, if I come across anything follow-up wise from anybody as it pertains to this, like whether if it's going to get challenged in court, anything that I come across with regard to this, I'll definitely include that in future Swamp episodes. And from HHS, nutrition is back where it belongs, at the center of medical education. 36 states now have schools following the Trump administration's nutrition education pledge. States with schools following the Trump administration's new nutrition education pledge. And this is the map. And surprisingly, California is there. New York is there. Let's see. Looks like Massachusetts is on there. Even Michigan. Michigan's there. So a lot of blue states are involved in trying to make our students a little bit healthier at schools, surprisingly, because, you know, it's under the Trump administration. I'm surprised that they're even considering it. But of course, there's a handful of states that haven't jumped in. Not surprisingly, Illinois. I mean, hell, even Minnesota. Even Minnesota has a single school district that is, or well, at least one school. They have at least one school. Let's see. Yeah, schools. At first I was wondering if it meant school districts, but yeah. Anyway. HHS rapid response. Since President Trump came into office, obesity rates in this country have dropped by 2.5%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's the first drop of any kind that we've had in the United States in over 50 years. So any drop is a good drop, especially when it comes to obesity. That drop alone will have significant impacts on healthcare costs in this country, as I bet it will. 2.5%. That's incredible.
Since President Trump came into office, obesity rates in this country have dropped by 2.5%. That's the first drop in 50 years.
We're probably damn near on max at this point.
And that drop alone will have significant impacts on healthcare costs in this country, because obesity drives about 80% of chronic disease.
Wild.
48 cents out of every dollar that you pay to the federal government in taxes is now going to treat for healthcare, and about 90% of that is spent on treating chronic disease. When my uncle was president, we spent zero on chronic disease. And today we're the healthiest country in the world. Today we're the sickest. We have the highest chronic disease burden. As you pointed out, 35%.
I think a lot of it, I think, has to do with food stamps and the SNAP benefits program. At first, it was, as my understanding goes, like back in the 90s, like for a very brief time, my family we were on food stamps for a short period of time, and we didn't have the option to get candy bars and all that. I distinctly remember asking a couple times when we were at the store, and my mom was like, "No, we can't get that. We can't afford that." And the food stamps aren't going to pay for it. So we were able to get canned foods and just the basic staples, milk, flour, sugar, that kind of thing. Maybe not even sugar. I mean, I'd assume that you were allowed to get sugar on food stamps back then. But these days, look, they've curbed a lot of it in many states where you can't buy a whole bunch of crap on SNAP benefits anymore. But if you go back like a year or so, or even several months ago, even on Amazon, they have an entire section on specifically SNAP benefits, and it'll blow your mind what people were eligible to buy with SNAP benefits and the colossal amount of junk food at their disposal. It's just insane. And of course, I'm sure like Big Sugar was lobbying for it, and also the fast food, and maybe not fast food industries, but like the junk food industries were, I'm surely lobbying extremely heavily for their products to be included on SNAP benefits, because they were included on SNAP benefits. So I can only imagine how much money went into political campaigns in order to see that through and balloon our entire society into just this a behemoth of obesity that we've been stuck with.
American adults are obese. When my uncle was president, 3% of children were obese. Now it's 40% or 20%. 70% of adults are obese or overweight.
70?
And
holy shit.
77% of our kids cannot qualify for military service because of chronic disease, mainly obesity.
Wait. What percentage did you say?
Of our kids cannot qualify. 77% of our kids cannot qualify for military service because of chronic disease, mainly obesity. This has national security implications. It is absolutely destroying our country economically. It's the biggest cause.
Yeah, it's unreal. Almost 80% of our children cannot join the military because they will not pass a physical exam. It is absolutely crazy. You know, like some of us lucked out when it comes to just having just lucky genes. I mean, like I weigh, I think like 20, 25 pounds underweight, even though I eat whatever the hell I want, whenever the hell I want. It's just, you know, some people are freak in nature like that. But yeah, like that, to have 70% of our population being overweight, and it's all in what we eat. We eat a bunch of junk food. We got corn in everything. We have sugar in everything. It's terrible. Ultra processed food. Anyway, JD Vance, he says Trump won. We don't have to do this anymore. And this is on Sports Illustrated. Like I've said many times before, I don't watch sports. I have no idea what's going on in sports, but apparently this is going on in sports. 3 Giants pitchers wrote Bible verses on their Pride Night caps. They were forced to wear Pride Night caps during Friday's game. And Major League Baseball has since issued a warning to them. Okay, well, what are you going to do when your pitchers just say, well, fine, then I'm just not going to pitch? I mean, I get it. They've probably got a whole bunch of pitchers on their roster, and they'll probably find at least 2 or 3 that'll play ball, no pun intended. And you know, I don't know, man. I just think it's just absolute bullshit. You know, for them to have to write Bible verses on their hats just to you know, signal their displeasure of having to wear something like this. So yeah, MLB warns Giants pitchers who wrote Bible verses on caps during the Pride Night. Whatever that means. I'm assuming they probably just said, don't do it again or else. But, you know, they're under contract. I'm sure it's probably not written in their contract that you're not allowed to write anything on your baseball cap during Pride Night. But whatever. And moving on to FBI rapid response. So there's been this back and forth going on. I have not paid attention to it. I just looked at some of the top news topics that were happening on the X platform today. And this drama is happening between Candace Owens and the FBI. So let's see, where should I start with this? Well, it would make sense to start with Candace Owens since she initiated all this. So Candace Owens says, via FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, we formally requested Kash Patel's travel itinerary for the 3 days leading up to Charlie Kirk's assassination, and we just heard back. And we're told that the burden of the request is too great. How is this even remotely legal? Well, FBI rapid response, they replied to Candace Owens, Dear Real Candace O, please show us on the document sent back to you acknowledging your FOIA request where we said the burden of the request is too great, with the emojis. Your show, just like the fake news media, will be called out when you lie. We hope this helps. Wow. So this is the memo that was sent from the FBI to Candace Owens. I'm not sure why they redacted her name, but anyway, maybe that's just a formality. Please be advised that unusual circumstances, quote unquote, that's what they highlighted, unusual circumstances in quotes, applied to the processing of your request. C5 USC, blah, blah, blah. Unusual circumstances include one or more of the following scenarios. There's a need to search for and collect records from field offices and or other offices that are separate from the FBI record information dissemination section. Look, I think all she's asking for was Kash Patel's travel records. I mean, like they don't have like an itinerary. I'm pretty sure that's what she was asking for. It's just simple itinerary. There is a need to search for, collect, and examine a voluminous amount of separate and distinct records. There's a need for consultation with other agency or two or more DOJ components, and it goes on from there. I'll repost this also. Usually if there's an image or a letter that I can't read the whole thing, I'll usually repost it so anybody can have a look at it as easily as I can provide. So that is how they replied to Candace Owens, and I believe I have a response from her. Yeah, so here we go. So she responded to FBI Rapid Response and said, to the intern running this X account, you'll note that we did not put your response in quotation marks. That's called paraphrasing. When you wrote back to us suggesting that we reduce the scope of our request while referring to our request for a mere 3-day itinerary as substantive, we appropriately paraphrased on for fellow X users that our request was too burdensome. We then published your full response as well as our full request onto our show for the public to read themselves. Glad to see you are actually capable of respond rapidly to smear people that won't let go of Charlie Kirk's death. Do you mind utilizing a similar speed to get Tyler Robinson's defense team the documents they've been requesting and which have mysteriously been in your possession since September? Thanks in advance, Chief. And as far as I know, that was it. So Candace Owens, she also said, here's the full episode that you could see where we displayed the full properly contextualized document that you're requesting. Maybe should have checked it out before you had yourself a cry on X. And I didn't see anything posted after that. So I'm guessing that FBI Rapid Response didn't respond to that. So there's a back and forth happening. And maybe you saw that, maybe not, probably didn't because it's here on the X platform. Unless you're also on here, maybe you didn't have a chance to see that. Like I said, I'm not following it. I don't really watch anything with Candace Owens. I know who she is. I just don't really, follow her or really any real political pundits. I don't really follow them, not these days. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. Yesterday, I welcomed Italian Defense Minister, is it Guido? I think it's Guido Crosetto, to the Pentagon. We reaffirmed the strength of the bilateral defense relationship between the United States and Italy and agreed on the urgent need for NATO allies to increase defense spending, expand defense industrial production, and field combat credible military forces. Now, before I play this, I did drop a comment in here that I just figured I'd bring up. Did you ask him why Italy blocked U.S. warplanes from landing in Italy during Operation Epic Fury? I doubt it. I'm sure he didn't. And obviously, Pete Hegseth ain't going to read my comment, but I just figured that should be said because that's exactly what Italy did. They didn't set up a no-fly zone over the country. They just banned the U.S. military from landing planes in bases, including our bases, which we do have in Italy. And, there you go. So you think that maybe the defense minister may have something to say about that. Although, I don't think we're going to get anything out of him with regard to that, though.
Crosetto and your team, welcome to the Pentagon. Thank you for being here. Italy's growing
that's a big dude.
Leadership in Europe is largely thanks to you and the Prime Minister's efforts.
Or Pete Hegseth's a lot smaller than I thought.
For the steadfast support your government and the Italian people show in hosting U.S. forces in Italy, a long-standing partnership. And in today's vital global landscape, our partnership is more important than ever. Building combat credible forces, expanding capabilities, and accelerating our shared defense industrial base. Mr. Minister, there's more to be done to build NATO 3.0, and we look forward to working together with you. Thank you for being here, sir.
Yeah, like I said, it would just be nice to have access to our own military bases when we're carrying out an operation not far away from Italy. Just saying, why else do we have military bases there? Okay, let's head on to the next one. Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, I haven't talked about her in a while, goes on an unhinged rant against Elon Musk becoming a trillionaire. Actually, I just read yesterday that Elon Musk, so a few days ago, SpaceX went public with their IPO, absolutely exploded in value, and Elon Musk's net worth had ballooned up to $1.1 trillion. I believe as of today, his wealth has amassed up to $1.3 trillion. So in just a matter of a couple of days, he has amassed an extra $200 billion of his net worth. But it might surprise you, maybe you already know this, that Elon Musk lives in a really modest house. He lives in like a small ranch-style house, and he even has one of those like box homes that are mobile, like you fold them out or whatever. He has one of those next to the house. He doesn't even own the house. He rents the house. And that's where he lives essentially full-time in Texas, and it's right next to I don't know if it's SpaceX or Tesla or maybe both, but yeah, apparently the house is extremely minimal. That there's like nothing fancy about it, no pool or anything like that. It's just like small little dwelling that he rents. And when his mom comes to visit, she sleeps in a I'm assuming it's a finished space, but she sleeps in the garage. Although, like I said, it's probably a finished space. I mean, technically, the room I'm in right now it's a converted garage. At least it used to be. All right, so anyway, let's get back to this. So Elizabeth Warren goes on unhinged rant against Elon Musk being a trillionaire. A rigged economy. Elizabeth Warren is a taker, not an innovator. She became wealthy off public office while slamming capitalism and free markets. Wealth for me, not for thee. Commie scum.
Elon Musk is officially the world's first trillionaire.
Hallelujah.
Think about that.
He earned
We're
it,
living in
right?
a time when more and more people are
Better
just
him than
hanging
somebody
on by
else.
their fingernails to survive in this economy. And Elon Musk has
No thanks
more
to Democrats
money
and
more
Obamacare.
wealth than anyone
It's absolutely gutting the
in
middle class.
human history. I want to be clear. This is not just some fluke. It is a feature of a rigged economy.
Oh, yeah, I was muted. Yeah, it says the Democrat who lives in one of the most expensive places in the entire country. All these Democrat districts are some of the most expensive places on earth, taxing the shit out of everybody. The high cost of living is just absolutely insane, hyperinflated beyond belief. And yeah, so she wants to stand up on a soapbox and try to browbeat a native African American, Elon Musk, for being a trillionaire. Well, dude, he's earned it. I mean, look, all the shit that he's accomplished. And like I said, better him than not somebody else. Could you imagine somebody like George Soros had a fucking $1 trillion? No, hell no. They're just mad because Elon's not on their side anymore. That's what makes them so mad. Because if Elon was still all about the Democrats and donating to him, they would just be celebrating, chanting hallelujah, and just, praise be Elon Musk. Okay, so National Weather Service. So it looks like we might have our first tropical cyclone of this year, of this hurricane season. It's like it might be tracking off the coast of Texas, and looks like it might develop into a tropical depression and potentially a tropical cyclone, maybe. I guess only time will tell. It's going to hug right up against the coast, so I'm not sure if it's going to develop into a full-on tropical storm or not, but it looks like it's possible. And let's see what other images we have. So this is probably the rainfall estimate. Yeah. So the rainfall estimate offshore looks like it's going to be like up to 8 inches. Lake Charles area in Louisiana, they might be getting like 6 inches, 8 inches. Mississippi, Alabama. So quite a bit of rainfall happening with that. And I do have a follow-up. Oh, here, let me just read this real quick. I forgot to read it. NHC has initiated advisories on potential tropical cyclone 1. Formerly AL90, located over southern Texas. Potential tropical cyclone advisories, PTC advisories, are issued when there is a high confidence that the disturbance will develop into a storm and bring significant impacts. Potentially life-threatening flash and urban flooding is possible across the Texas coast eastward into central Mississippi through Thursday. Prolonged rainfall may extend the flood threat into the weekend. Widespread small stream and minor river flooding is expected along the Texas coast into southwest Louisiana, with isolated areas of significant river flooding possible across the Texas coast and Louisiana. Potential tropical cyclone 1 is forecast to become a tropical storm as it moves along or just off the northwestern Gulf coast through Wednesday. Tropical storm watches have been issued from Sargent, Texas to Morgan City, Louisiana. I wonder when the last time it was that we had an A-named storm hit the United States. I mean, surely it had to have been after Andrew, but... Oh, yeah, Andrea. I definitely remember an Andrea happening sometime in, like, the last several years. I think it hit up, like, around Jacksonville, maybe. And that was like 10, 12 years ago. Minor to moderate coastal flooding is expected along portions of the upper Texas and Louisiana coastlines. And that's going to be on hurricanes.gov for more information. And I do have a follow-up. Got one more. Just one more quick one. National Hurricane Center on June 16th, 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Key messages for potential tropical cyclone 1. For the latest information, visit hurricanes.gov. So I won't read all of it because I already read the last post, and I'm sure it just goes over the same stuff, talking about flooding and, a potentially life-threatening situation with this new tropical storm. Potential. It's not a guaranteed tropical storm. They're just saying that it's likely. And here's the list of the 2026 Atlantic Storm Name List, in case you haven't seen it yet. These are the predetermined names for the seasons. Same as 2020, but with Leah replacing Laura, and it's going to be Arthur. So that's what it's going to be. Tropical Storm Arthur And then, of course, we got Bertha and Cristobal, Dolly. I'm not going to go through all of them. So got them right here on the screen. So that's what we're going to have. I always notice just there's always a couple of standouts that just give you ominous vibes, like Omar. Omar definitely could be ominous. Marco. Yeah, those middle ones. They tend to pack a crazy punch, at least in my opinion. All right. And I believe I only have one more post. I think that's it. They only got one more post and we're done. We're going to be done for tonight. All right. Yeah, because it's NASA. Of course, we're going to be done after this one. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman. We are returning to the moon to build something extraordinary and continue mankind's greatest adventure to the stars. NASA Moon Base will serve as an outpost for science, technology, demonstrations, and the development of capabilities that will shape the future of exploration and prepare us for Mars.
You know, a few months ago, you unveiled a vision that included revamped plans for a permanent moon base. And one of the questions with that is, would this be considered a U.S. territory? How does that fit into where the Outer Space Treaty currently holds?
I think per the Artemis Accords, I don't think you can't claim any territory on the moon at all. Just because you plant a flag there doesn't mean that it's owned by anybody. It's all per the Artemis Accords.
It's a great question, and as you mentioned, the Outer Space Treaty prohibits sovereignty on the moon. This is about establishing an outpost on the moon for scientific operations. We're probably going to put a lot of landers and rovers on the surface, maybe with radio telescopes that go to the far side of the moon. For economic potential, we're going to be interacting with the lunar regolith, maybe 3D printing satellites, maybe mining helium-3. There's tech demonstrations that are going to be on the moon. We're going to interact with the water ice to master the skills for where we go next, which is going to be Mars. And then obviously there is just a lot of inspiration that's going to come out of having humankind's first outposts on another world. But this isn't about sovereignty. It's about scientific, economic, and tech demonstrations that will take place on the lunar surface.
Well, look, I don't know about the whole mining for economic reasons. I thought the Artemis Accords had forbid that too on the moon, but I could be wrong on that. Maybe not. But anyway, that is going to do it for this episode. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow night as we explore the swamp Monday through Friday. Also, I post daily on X, which is where you can peek at the content for the next episode. And don't forget, video clips from tonight will begin dropping on the channel tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern. Thank you very much for watching. God bless the troops and God bless America.